I know I said at the end of my 2024 year in review video that the next major project done would be the Veilguard video, and it's still coming, eventually, I swear, but I've been swamped with work ever since and I've already been distracted playing catch-up, so I decided it would be best to work on something smaller and snappier to warm myself up. And so, we're doing another round of the Backlog collection, because the first video I did of this concept that I put up late last year was fun to make and almost broke 1,000 views, which may not sound like much, but it means the world to me. So I've selected 5 indie games that were on my Xbox Series X to highlight for a follow-up.
Second verse, same as the first.
And something I learned during the first video is to more carefully curate my picks for a wider variety of gameplay and styles. I ran into writer's block on the first one because 3 out of 5 games I picked were platformers, 2 of which had a similar vibe. But with that, let's dig into this new spread. This is the Backlog Collection, Volume 2. Let's get started by getting down with Monster Prom, the first game by indie studio Beautiful Glitch. Announced on Kickstarter in 2016 and initially released in 2018. Not only did it reach its baseline and stretch goals, it found itself on the radar of YouTuber Jesse Cox. He played the demo on his channel and was so into the Aberration Academia that he reached out to the devs and became a producer for the game. I remember how excited he was talking about it on the Co-optional podcast, which, just to be frank, a lot of games I'll bring up in the Backlog collection that released in the early to mid 2010s, I picked up because of this podcast. Rest in peace to John Total Biscuit Bain. The legacy and insanity of the show lives on with the Geekenders podcast. But back to Monster Prom. Jesse did loads of Monster Prom videos across its updates playing with other YouTubers that also got cast in the game. I never ended up watching those videos because I meant to play Monster Prom for myself. So let's check it out and see if I fall in love. You're a student at Spooky High School, and there's only a few weeks left until prom. So in that time, you go around campus as one of 4 playable monsters doing activities and having chance encounters with a selection of hellacious husbandos and wicked waifus. Will you be able to woo the monster of your nightmares when you ask them out on the day of the dance? Or will you get rejected so hard that no amount of self-acceptance will let you move on from it? Just like real prom. It's not just a cute gimmick that all your potential dates are riffs on cryptids and horror tropes. Oh no, this lot is deranged. These are, after all, literal monsters, but they are also figurative monsters who will sink to any depravity in a world where anomalies and atrocities are an on-the-hour occurrence. They're crass, rude, violent, greedy, and disgusting in different combinations and ratios, and I love them all so much. The absurdist and irreverent comedy consistently hit me hard, and the partial voice acting from the stellar cast sells all their perversions perfectly. From Miranda Vanderbilt, a ditzy princess of ancient merfolk royalty who will conquer your nation for slighting her, like even suggesting the idea that her aquatic servants deserve civil rights. Voiced by Christine Marie Cabanos of Kengan Ashura, Kill la Kill, and Danganronpa fame to name a few. Damien LeVay, the demon prince of hell who doesn't give a damn unless everything around him is on fire or exploding. So if they're not, he'll usually just light those fuses himself. Voiced by Nathan Nate Wants to Battle Sharp, who coincidentally voiced a character in Pinstripe, one of the subjects of my first Backlog video. Best girl Polly Geist, who does whatever she can to dance, drink, and dope up well after her early grave, and she'll drag everyone and anyone down with her without feeling the consequences since she's already dead. Played by Sarah Ann Williams, who voiced Mirai in Boruto and Tifa in Team 4 Star's Final Fantasy VII Abridged.
Oh, sure, you can stay behind. And when I get back, I'm gonna shove my fist so far up your ass that everyone's gonna think, wow, that is the whiniest looking puppet I've ever seen!
What the f?
Shoulder deep! Cloud!
And many more, so there's bound to be at least one reprobate that's right for you. But in order to win them over, you need to work on yourself, to be the best, worst you can be. Go to the gym and increase your charm by getting more fit and being inspiring to your teammates during a tough game. You'll be so charming that Miranda and the glitzy Gorgon Vera will have to swoon in your presence. Raving outside to practice your moves and become more outgoing and fun. Polly and Damien will gravitate you being the life of the party since they crash every party they can find. Actually, go to class because you're there to learn, right? Increase your smarts to help the hipster vampire Liam come up with new ways to be pretentious and snarky. And you'll be smart enough to know how to do it in a way that looks like you're not even trying. You'll be way into that. Or you can go to the library and use the computer to send out email scams and defraud people with cryptocurrency to earn money to buy items at the shop to boost your stats. Because why would you put in the work to be a better person? That's what the money is for, to fast track your way to popularity and status. Succeeding is harder than it looks at first because this dating dating sim visual novel has a dash of roguelite elements to spice up its noxious brew. Each week leading up to the big day is split up into 3 sections. The day and night, where you choose to either attend a class or commit some level of truancy to increase your stats, and a lunch period in between where you can interact more directly with your scary schoolmates to gain hearts so they might actually like you. No matter what you do, you'll have a run-in with one or more of your petrifying peers, where you make invisible skill checks that succeed or fail based on your stats. Your standing with them could still increase even if you fail, but you could also lose stat points if your skill isn't high enough. It's like a Dungeons & Dragons DM who never tells you what skill you're using when you make checks. But no matter the outcome, it's probably going to be funny. I wish there was a little more transparency with some of the information, like what stat you actually need to impress certain characters, and to see how many hearts you actually got with them. I had to look up guides to get an idea on what I should be aiming for and what skills I needed to maintain. And even if you do meet the stat requirements, you could just be unlucky and not have enough interactions with your creepy confidant to succeed in even asking them out in the end. But you can try as many times as you need, as there are literally thousands of different events and outcomes across the different characters and random events, as well as secret endings that open up new possibilities from getting special items to trigger arching quest lines. And you don't have to try and win love on your own. Prom is a social event after all, so you can play with up to 4 people in local and online multiplayer and be each other's wingmen as you pine after your different dates, or throw each other under the bus and fight over the same one. I didn't have a party to play with, but you can get really wild playing a 4-player game solo. Yes, I realize the irony of playing multiplayer in a game about matchmaking by your lonesome, but it oddly works. It was fun bouncing between all the playable characters and setting up my ships as I juggled their stats and plans. The dopey zombie Brian trying to win over the prim and improper Princess Miranda, Vicky's overly energetic antics getting her close to Vera, Emira being made of fire made it easy to spark things up with Damien, and my spirit animal Oz, shy, introverted, trying to be the drug of choice for party girl Polly. Monster Prom is a great time, and the XXL version is pretty much the standard edition now, adding new characters and even more events so you can go back to school over and over again. I was wondering why How Long to Beat said the completionist playthrough could take over 100 hours. But Prom was only the start of Beautiful Glitch's ravenous romances, as there are multiple sequels to keep the party going in new settings. Monster Camp, Monster Road Trip, and a 4th title, Monster Con, releasing at the end of April. He said, having originally written that line in March and is only now adding this line into the script and recording it in mid-May now that the game is out. Monster Prom is ravenous fun, and if you're looking for an even spicier game also produced by Jesse Cox, play Max Gentleman's Sexy Business. It's genuinely a really fun tycoon game. Tomboy Pip Whipple is best girl. Otherwise, if you're looking for more monster macking, check out Romancylvania. While its side-scrolling combat isn't great, its characters are, and the Bachelor/Bachelorette game show conceit of the story is a lot of fun. I never did finish it though, a subject for a future Backlog video perhaps. But in the meantime, Monster Prom is feeding my hunger for love. Take a bite. You might find out that you're into it. From the bustling madness of school life, let's head into the gentle calm of nature with Fae, released in 2018 by Swedish developer Zoink Games. And no, it's not called Fee like I called it across my whole playthrough. It's actually pronounced Fae as in fairy. Zoink has a storied history, but they're most well known for the games they've made under the EA Originals label, most recently Lost in Random in 2021, which is getting a sequel sometime in 2025. Fae caught my attention because its glowing visuals made me think of it like a 3D Ori and the Blind Forest. Drawn in by the song of nature, let's head into the thickets of the unknown. We play as a little creature that kind of looks like a cross between a hedgehog and a lemur, as they wake up in a forest after seemingly crash landing into it. With no real direction, you're simply left to wander into the wilds around you, befriending the wildlife by howling at them, and following this deer-like creature into a large clearing, looked down on by this massive one-eyed tree. It's not long after that our dear friend is kidnapped by these hostile stone-like entities that are going around capturing the other inhabitants of the forest. In order to save them and find out what these invaders are and why they're doing this, you travel across the different biomes of the forest to receive guidance from the great beasts of the land, and collecting scattered memories from discarded helmets to discover the true intentions of the Silent Ones and their scourge. Why I immediately compared Fae to Ori at first glance is admittedly superficial. They are very different in practically every way. There's no real reason to equate the two. But they turn out to share some themes deep down. and they're kind of on the opposite sides of the coin in their takes of their respective lush, luminescent aesthetics. Ori is very liquid and blobby, while Faye is very sharp and jagged. The blade-like foliage is stiff but still crinkles satisfyingly, like when you're climbing and leaping off trees to reach new areas or survey the land. The natural rustling of the tall grass as you hide from the tar-shooting gaze of the enemies, and the crystalline points on the various creatures you meet accentuate their detail and make them very expressive. Their dark glass forms move very naturally and are appropriately animal-like, making the rigid yet spider-like movements of the silent ones very unsettling in comparison. Faye looks amazing, and the different parts of the land tint the color palette depending on the landscape and what types of creatures live there. The yellow flowers sprout across the forest where there are more birds, and where you can get a feathery companion to help point you in the right direction if you get lost. The bright white of the snowy mountains, where the large rhino-horned wolves have been corrupted by stony armor that makes them hostile until you free them. And in areas with lots of Silent One activity, the sky grows noxious and hazy, limiting your sight as you try to avoid them, taking what you need stealthily, or even getting an adult creature to fight against them. Because you're just a little guy, you're legally too cute to throw hands, so fighting isn't really an option. More emphasis is on your mobility to travel the biomes as you unlock new movement abilities by finding crystals scattered around. When you get enough, you'll be directed to head back to the giant tree where some of your latent abilities will be awakened, like a glide or breaking into a dash. Useful, but only a few of these abilities are even needed to finish the game, and you won't even be able to find all the shards until you do. The more important Metroidvania powers you'll need for your journey will be granted to you by the Titans of the land, as they impart to you new languages to further communicate with nature. The land is teeming with life, and it takes knowing the right way to talk to it in order to bring it out. You're able to howl from the start, and depending on how far you pull down the trigger, you can change its pitch and volume, allowing you to sing to other creatures to get them to follow you so they can use their own songs to interact with the area. And eventually, by learning new languages, you can not only communicate with other grown-up variants of the various species, but also with the flora. The bray of the deer language opens up orange flowers that pinwheel, creating gusts of wind that keep your glide going for longer. The gurgling trill of the lizards and serpents can make pink flowers bloom to bounce off of them. Language is your most important tool, and even how these songs interact with the world tells you subtle things about it and the underlying story. And your furry little tufts or quills or whatever they are change color when you swap your language, and that's just cute. Bird chirps and whistles open up yellow flowers that have special nectar that can destroy the Silent One's gunk to open up new paths and to free other creatures. And even some languages you don't learn still have effects on the world. The Ursine-like pine cone's ferocious roar can also destroy corruption. Any song can interact with the dandelion-like eye stalks that summon spirits to be used as platforms. The ends of the Yggdrasil-like world tree's roots that connect nature together and can be spoken to in any language. Any song can also activate the murals that are scattered around that depict the many creatures of the land, including the Silent Ones. I said in the beginning that these stony creatures were invaders, but that turns out to be the wrong assumption. Their visages show up frequently in the ancient tablets, and there are old monuments that glow when you sing to them using your default language, meaning there's a connection between them and you. The Silent Ones, at least at one point, had a place in this nature as well, so maybe along the way you'll find out what happened to them, and why they have a crippling fear of deer in particular. Faye is pretty easy to get through. There are a few decent stealth sections where you have to puzzle solve around enemy patrols, but it's not that challenging and the checkpointing is very generous. The huge areas are pretty linear, so they aren't that hard to navigate, and as simple as the platforming is, it can get hung up on itself a little bit. But the occasional danger doesn't detract from the calm and majestic scale that this world provides. Climbing up trees and watching Faye's ears stick up in attention when they reach the top, looking out on the land and then leaping off, breaking into a satisfying glide. You're a tiny being in a massive world, but there's never this feeling that it's really trying to harm you. There are aggressive species, but you're not really treated like you're prey or a predator to the other wildlife. You're just another piece in the ecosystem, and if you show kindness to this world, it'll reach out to help you in return. It took me just shy of 5 hours to finish, because I was moving at a brisk pace, following the critical path while still finding many interesting secrets to fill out the world. But if you wanted, you could probably spend so much more time with Faye, basking in the tranquility, taking in new heights and getting lost in the lush areas, while the gentle music lullabies you to just carefully explore. Though I would highly recommend going into the settings and cranking the camera speed down to the slowest. Even on medium, the camera swinging around quickly on all the light bulb-like plants can be a bit jarring. Faye is very tranquil while also providing an interesting, subtle story about how languages and songs of all types bind us together, and the importance of teaching them to others to grow our understanding of each other. Even those who have forgotten or took it for granted can change. Even the silent need a voice. Going from the quiet serenity of nature, we now get loud and unsubtle with Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. Released in early 2021 on the Switch, but the first time I heard about it was when it released on Xbox Game Pass in 2022. And with a title like that, how could you ignore it? I checked it out, and after a few minutes, I was invested and having a lot of fun with it. I meant to record a full Let's Play, but it fell to the wayside. Even still, Turnip Boy was always in the back of my mind, still downloaded on my Xbox even after it left Game Pass. And its cult following has grown quite a bit. My youngest brother's doctor even recommended it when they were talking about video games during a checkup. So I finally bought Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, ironically with some of my tax refund. So let's get to it. It's time to wake up and do crimes. Like the name of the game suggests, you play as a little guy called Turnip Boy who starts his day off by shredding his overdue tax bill. As punishment for this financial truancy, he's forced by Mayor Onion to do some odd jobs to pay off the debt to get his greenhouse back. Well, I say forced, but I think Turnip Boy's doing it because he's just got nothing else to do. He doesn't have a job to be at. Even if he did, he's not paying his taxes anyway. After stealing a watering can and growing a sword in the woods, Turnip Boy sets out to do the mayor's bidding and whatever odd jobs that get thrust upon him. Traveling across the land of Vegieville, fighting woodland critters, and ripping up other people's important financial paperwork. Discovering that the real tax evasion was inside us all along. That sounds like a joke, but no, that really kind of is the moral of the story. Imagine a Legend of Zelda game where the story revolved around Link being a menace. Breaking into people's houses to destroy their property isn't a goofy side effect of your questing, it's the goal of your questing.
Gotta run around my town and try to find some cash. My neighbors saved me all the work.
Yeah.
You just break into people's houses. It's time to face the fact that you're a jerk.
That's pretty much Turnip Boy as a character and as a game. Our silent protagonist prances around the forest and meadows, stumbling into dungeons and growing his toolset. You use your equipment twin stick style, pointing the right stick to attack with your sword in that direction, jabbing up enemies ranging from critters and mutated food, literally tripping on your own feet to dodge their attacks and pulling yourself up off your face to spring up and stab forward with your grassy cutlass. And when it comes to puzzle solving, aiming your watering can to splash water on plants for different utilities, growing bombs that you can kick into obstacles and adversaries. You can even use water to, ironically, start a chain reaction of fires to burn away debris or set yourself ablaze to pass it on to other enemies. Turnip Boy is hardcore, and the last thing even the biggest bosses of this world see are his beady eyes and unwavering smile burning into their souls. Turnip Boy is very goofy, and basically everyone you meet has some quirk or is some reference, and there's a lot of great puns and absurdist twists. Everything is so bouncy and colorful, so of course there's something sinister going on under the surface. Under this very well-maintained hedge is a network of gnarled, twisted roots feeding off the corpses of the past. As you explore, you find the occasional odd artifact, and in the second major dungeon, you're walking through a house where you find the diary entries of a young girl talking about her brother who got enlisted in a war. But it makes you start to wonder about the world. Did this house belong to humans? If so, where are they? And how come we're to scale with the furniture in the rooms? Little guy turns out to not be so little. In fact, he's quite heckin' big, and that's actually kind of terrifying. And near the end of the game, you can find a newspaper detailing how the world was devastated by a virus, and human society was so rattled by it that nuclear war broke out. The devs have come out to say that the virus wasn't COVID, but given when this came out and when it was being developed, it sure felt surreal putting the pieces together. Snoozy Kazoo also did a big Discord AMA, and some of the reveals from it are wild. And it leads to this tragic story that underlies the back half of the game, and the boss of the second to last dungeon is actually quite upsetting, while also being the toughest fight in the game. And to add a cherry tomato on the top of this radioactive cake, it's your fault this fight even happens. I didn't expect a game where a vegetable that looks like Kirby goes around not doing his taxes to make me feel such existential dread. Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion is quite filling for being a salad. It's small, but that works in its favor, going from 0 to 100 with very good pacing, while being a hilarious romp that sprinkles in some dark humor, giving it a playful edge. Talking with the fruity and vegetable-y NPCs and doing their fetch quests to get little rewards, like new hats to wear and documents to shred, which are required to get the true ending. The world is so compact that you can do everything without really going out of your way. I was able to get every achievement in the game in just over 3 hours, though that does include the Sunset Station update that added a kind of lackluster roguelite mode. That was when it felt like it was overstaying its welcome, but that's only available after you finish the game anyways. And outside of that, the overall experience is a tasty one. Simple, but effective in its mechanics, storytelling, and humor. Turnip Boy is an easy-to-recommend dungeon crawler. But the tale of Turnip Boy isn't even over, as there was a direct sequel released in 2024, Turnip Boy Robs a Bank. And there's an Infinite Runner prequel game, Turnip Boy Steals the Mail, coming out sometime in 2025. Turnip Boy is an inspiration to us all. It's dangerous to grow alone. Take this and tear it in front of your elected official. We've still got some work to do, so let's make some deliveries with Yoku's Island Express. Coincidentally, the second game in this video that was released in 2018 by a Swedish developer, in this case, Villa Gorilla, a two-person team that worked on Yoku for fun over the course of 5 years and released it to critical acclaim. And it was, of all things, a Metroidvania pinball game. A fascinating combination and the sole reason I originally picked it up back in 2022. I've started it a few times in the past, but I've only played for maybe like 10 or 20 minutes each time. But this time, I'm sticking with it. Let's get rolling and see where we end up. Our story begins with a little dung beetle called Yoku as he gets washed up on the island of Mokumana. Luckily, this actually was his destination, because he's coming in to replace the island's mailman and take over his position as postmaster. However, it's not all stamps and envelopes, because the guardian of the island, Mokuma, has been gravely injured by his ancient rival, God Killer, and needs the aid of the local tribe leaders to heal. So Yoku is the perfect one to travel to the different regions of the island, delivering these messages and bringing the leaders together. Neither rain, nor snow, nor sleet, nor hail shall keep this postmaster from their appointed rounds. And it's up to Yoku to save the island from apocalyptic ruination. And if he's got time, deliver the mail. Which is important and all, but the former would probably look way better on his resume. I'm admittedly not a big pinball guy. I like pinball-themed Sonic levels like Casinopolis, but the only times I've gone out of my way to play pinball was in school, because Space Cadet Pinball was the only game my class played in the computer labs after the internet blockers banned the website with all the Scooby-Doo Flash games. And when you hear Metroidvania pinball game, you might think about Metroid Prime Pinball, but that's really just a Metroidvania game's aesthetic coating a relatively normal pinball table. Yoku, meanwhile, is this surprisingly huge open world that is connected by pinball tables that range wildly in size and complexity, hitting the triggers to flick the respective bumpers to launch Yoku around, aiming to roll on specific paths to activate switches and lights, collecting crystals that will open up the next path, all the while bashing into everything else around the tables to fill them with collectible fruits, which act as a currency to unlock bumpers in the overworld and items from the island's inhabitants, like bigger fruit wallets and maps to help you track down secrets. The size of the overworld is shockingly big. The island of Mokumana is lavishly detailed with different phenomenal-looking ecosystems, all brought to life by the painted art style that makes the colors vibrant and its inhabitants expressive. From the bright green forests that begin at the Mokumana beach, gradually bleeding into the darker greens of the Gorilla Woods, heading deeper down from there under the water to get into the cavernous depths of the Underdark, ancient ruins with murals that detail the history of the island, leading even deeper into the spiderweb-lined abyss where the ancient protectors stand watch for the next generation of gods to hatch. I guess this is better than a Demogorgon cult, though maybe just as creepy. Along the way, you can be passively doing some side quests for the colorful denizens, like helping the Wondrous Willow, a magician who's looking for the scattered pieces of his rival after a trick went awry, delivering overdue packages like a birthday cake to the reclusive inventor Sin, who lives on floating rock islands high up in the sky. All that and more as you can press a button to have Yoku cheerfully blow a party horn no matter how dire things may be. Yoku does what the best Metroidvania games do. It encourages you to explore. It opens the gates for deeper exploration in places you've already been, doing laps around the island trying to find that thing you now recognize as a grapple point that you vaguely remember seeing in the first areas. But then you find some bumpers that you didn't see before, and that sends you to an all-new area of the map with even more to find. And some of the trickier collectibles are real brain teasers that require you to use your items in unorthodox ways, like sucking up an exploding slug in a pinball table, then quickly exiting it and lining up the burst to launch yourself up just high enough to latch onto a grapple point and reach a wickerling. That is just one of many needed to unlock the secret ending. Your progress is really reliant on using fruits to open the world up, from mandatory bumpers to the beeline travel system, which can get you across the whole island in a flash. But I got a bit held up, because through my clumsy playing, I was collecting huge caches of fruit in some of the major tables with a tiny, already full wallet. And by the time I got bigger wallets, I had picked a lot of areas and secrets clean, and was spending fruit as fast as I was getting it, making it really hard to have a surplus for the expensive passive upgrades. That inefficient fruit finagling slowed me down a bit, but not that much, because there was always plenty of paths to take to slowly build the nutrients I needed. It can get annoying when you're trying to hit a specific part of the table, but you get stuck looping back on the wrong bumper that won't give you the angle you need, or repeatedly mistiming your shot. I always felt I was at the whims of the table and had no real control over the ball. But it wasn't until the last third of the game that I was hit by a realization. This may be a pinball game, but you're not playing as the ball. You're playing as the bug. Yoku is definitely along for the ride when he gets launched by any bumper. If anything, it's amazing that the whiplash from the tutorial didn't tear him in half. You can't do much about your trajectory in the air, but you have a lot of control on the ground. Being able to slow yourself down near the bottom flippers to more easily line yourself up for the different launches. Or if you need to get to the other side of the table, you can hold down one of the flippers and point it up so Yoku can push the ball up it and get over to the other side, completely negating one of my earlier complaints. Again, you're not the ball, you're the bug. And that simple distinction makes a big difference in how you approach the pinball tables and puzzle solving, making both even more satisfying. Yoku's Island Express had me hooked. It kept hitting me with that just one more time loop, making the pinball formula constantly surprising and rewarding, all the while being just a delightful world to be in. This was an amazing first game by Villa Gorilla. But unfortunately, the duo that comprised the studio split sometime after Yoku's release. Amicably, based on what I could find, they just went on to do new things in the games industry. Jens Anderson went on to work for Machine Games, where, most recently, he was the design director for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which is amazing, by the way. Underrated 2024 release. And the other half of the duo, Matthias Singh, founded a new studio, Witch Elm. And their first game, a survival horror Metroidvania called Silver Pines, is on its way. This is probably going to be the only game we'll ever see Yoku in, but he did his job, and he delivered right on time.
I'll make it through, oh yeah.
The end of our quest approaches, so let's finish things out with Trek to Yomi, released in 2022 and developed by Flying Wild Hog, the studio behind the Shadow Warrior remake and its respective trilogy. I've only ever played the first game, and despite how good it was, I never got around to finishing it. But it's interesting seeing the studio that really blew up with their tongue-in-cheek ninja hack and slash trying their hand at a very serious samurai story. I originally started Trek to Yomi when it released concurrently with Game Pass, but just never got back to it. So, let's regain our focus and start again. We play as a young samurai named Hiroki, who's training with his master when their village is attacked by bandits. In trying to defend it, his master loses his life, and Hiroki is entrusted with the safety of the village and of his master's daughter, Aiko. Years later, a warlord is waging bloody conquest across Edo, Japan, and when that conquest finds its way to Hiroki's village, he becomes hell-bent on vengeance. And that turns out to be literal when he finds himself in the Japanese underworld of Yomi. And to escape it, he needs to finally decide what it truly is that he's fighting for. Yes, I'm now going to compare Trek to Yomi to films by Akira Kurosawa, because even though I'm uncultured and haven't actually seen a full Kurosawa movie, the motifs and aesthetics are so iconic that you'd still recognize them. And Trek to Yomi is so dedicated to feeling and looking like a classic samurai movie that I almost felt bad for turning off the film grain. Almost. The black and white film art style is so striking, and the world is brought to life by the dancing shadows that grow more intense as Hiroki ages and more of his regrets weigh down on him. His childhood took a turn when what could have been a bright day became stained by the blood of the innocent and the dishonorable. As he grows up and the storm of destruction draws closer until it swallows his home in fire, the finer details of his clothes and body can barely be made out at times as flames consume everything around him. And the abyss of Yomi itself, as his guilt and anger close in on him, with the only light peeking through from the ghostly horizon, surrounded by the spirits of others that have failed in their own journeys or died by Hiroki's blade. The darkness threatens to swallow you whole, but oftentimes you'll find items and upgrades that make you stronger by finding the light. I know that calling a game cinematic is an overused trope, but Trek to Yomi truly captures the feeling that you're playing through an old samurai movie, down to its film distortions that blend the cutscenes and gameplay together. Your travels across the lands of the living and the dead weave in small explorable 2.5D sections where you can find upgrades or artifacts that often detail foreboding stories of the gods and their own instances of destructive vengeance. And once you can only move left and right in a 2D space, you're drawing your sword, ready to fight, squaring off in arenas that are framed by amazing camera angles that give every battle a gorgeous backdrop. Clashing swords across a creaking rope bridge as the loser falls from it in death. A hall where the foreground is obscured by screens, so the battle rages on in and out of silhouette, while trying to position yourself so your opponent's movements aren't hidden behind pillars. There are so many jaw-dropping set pieces where the shots just linger for a while, probably just to show off the creative angle, and it makes many of these standoffs stand out. I've spent a lot of time praising To Yomi's visuals because they're really that good, and I'd recommend the game on that alone. But if you're going to play the game, don't do what I did and start off on hard mode. I don't know what possessed me to tempt fate like that. I suppose right before I played To Yomi, I had recently beaten Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. But maybe I was just a bit too big for my Hakama, because To Yomi can be as brutal as it is beautiful, and as I've stated, it's very beautiful. You may be only able to move in 2 directions in combat, but even early on, you are surrounded by enemies as they line up to cut themselves a slice of samurai, and despite your ever-growing arsenal of light and heavy attacks to cut them down or stun them for an execution, you will be fighting through long gauntlets with very unforgiving checkpoints. And on the higher difficulties, one swing that's too short or a mistimed parry can end you. Regular bandits are difficult enough. They come wearing varying degrees of equipment, requiring you to use heavy attacks to break through their armor, or change up your timing between sword and polearm wielders. And the divide between the worlds is made starkly clear by how ruthless the growling monsters of the underworld are. The Blighted and other demons attack you more recklessly, lunging at you with a formless fighting style and unflinching to most hits, making it hard to damage them without getting hit by a retaliatory flail. The spirits in the depths of Yomi may fight like men, but they are not bound by flesh, so they can teleport behind you and be summoned by wailing wraiths until you take them out. Each enemy is ferocious, and while overcoming the odds makes every victory satisfying, getting stuck makes you feel like you're actually in hell. But weirdly, the gargles and screams of the Blighted kinda make them sound like Stitch. So that's funny at least.
Poor man, Sushi! Oh, leave my mother out of this!
Different enemies require different tactics, so you need to watch their movements, learn their timing, grow your resolve and skills to become a master swordsman just to survive. Until you find the heavy stun attack. You take a step back as part of the wind-up, perfect for avoiding attacks before you spring forward, getting off a heavy hit when your enemies are most vulnerable, making for an easy stun and follow-up execution, which at that point in the game will regenerate some health. It's not foolproof, but pulling that off consistently is more forgiving than the parry window, and the consistent stuns trivialize most encounters in the back half of the game. And even though that trick won't work on the boss fights, the sharpest blade in those battles is the basics, dodging their big attacks and moving out of their AoEs and chipping away at them with a patient stream of 1-2 heavy slashes. The combat looks more complex than it is. Despite your gradually growing repertoire of light and heavy combo attacks, your skills will mean nothing if your fundamentals aren't in top form. In a couple of spots, you're asked to make choices, but they don't really matter until a final question at the end of Chapter 6, where you're supposed to make a decision that will lock you into one of the 3 main endings, though the way it's framed doesn't really make that clear until it's too late. Also, just an aside, I didn't even realize there was an optional English dub you could turn on in the settings until I finished the game and saw that there was an English cast. It's pretty solid throughout, but even as a guy who prefers dubs, there are occasional awkward deliveries and odd script changes. Now, don't mistake my frustrations for admonishment. I still highly recommend To Yomi. Its aesthetic is incredible, and the gameplay is so stylish and elegant while still feeling weighty. I just wasn't ready for how hard the path I chose was. I was not patient enough and not at peace with myself when I decided to walk it. But this is a path worth walking. I was surprised by how low the completion percentage for the game was. At least on Xbox, less than 6% of people even finish the game, and only a tenth of that number have beaten it on hard mode, and then only a sixth of those have beaten the game on the highest difficulty Kensei. If you want some challenging achievements, To Yomi might make you an actual samurai by the end of it. But even if you don't go that far, you should still experience it, because it's another piece of great samurai media that makes me want more. Very different vibe, but while writing this, and probably while editing this too now, I've been rewatching Blue Eye Samurai for like the 4th or 5th time. The new season is just around the corner. We are so close. Hiroki's journey is about finding balance within himself. He's lost so much, and his soul is split between the many promises he holds to others without solving the inner turmoil within himself. He could easily be lost by that anger and spread that hatred to others as was done to him. Or he can find peace within himself and choose what he's truly fighting for. Be it the duty he promised to his master, or the love he promised to his wife Aiko. A blade is a line between life and death, and it's the edge we forge that cuts the line between them. Hey, it's Tim for VO chiming in to say thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I hope you enjoyed the continuation of the Backlog collection. This took me way too long to finish for really no good reason. I wanted to have this done in March, but I kept getting distracted by work, life, and playing more games on the Let's Play channel. It took me so long to finally just buckle down and finish this that Silk Song got its release date announced before I got done with the video. If you want to see me play all the games I highlighted in this video, I've got complete playthroughs of them up on my Let's Play channel. If you want another group of indie games to add to your own backlog, you can check out my first backlog collection video, or my video about every game I played on my Let's Play channel in 2024. If you'd like to support me more directly, you can pledge on my Patreon or make a one-time donation to my Ko-fi. Links down in the description. No matter what you do, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, like and subscribe and all that, and I'll see you next time.